Blake runs us through his Toxtricity VMAX deck live on the Sableyes.
Welcome back everybody to more from the Sableyes. I'm Blake and today I'm going to be taking you through a look at my Toxtricity VMAX deck that I piloted against Dragapult VMAX on the channel recently. This deck I built in reference to some of the Japanese lists we saw during the pre-release and just some cards I thought would be nice in the deck over some original choices from them. So a little bit of a mix-up, but we'll start right off with this deck with the Toxtricity line. So first up we have 3 of the Toxtricity V. Now this Toxtricity V is very strong, 210 HP, first attack, 20 damage and poison for 1 lightning energy. Not too impressive, but if you need to get early damage and you miss a good opening turn, then 20 damage and poison, get some good chip damage, and it activates your poison, so you might not need to get up that Garbodor for the next turn, because both the second attack of this Toxtricity and the Toxtricity VMAX both require poison to do an extra effect. Now the second attack for Toxtricity V, Electric Riot, does 90 plus 90 if your opponent's active is poisoned, so very strong attack. Much better than the promo card, which I believe Jordan mistakenly thought I was playing when on his commentary of our matchup between me and Mitch. So that's why I was able to take that knockout so easily. And because this is such a strong attacker without the VMAX on top of it, you actually don't need to run backup attackers like Tapu Koko V or like a Alolan Raichu or Pikarom or anything like that. You can actually get away with just the Toxtricity V because it's got a really strong second attack with the bonus of poison and E-powers. You can get a lot of damage, but the mainstay of this deck and the reason this deck is so strong is because of our Toxtricity VMAXs. Big 320 HP, and for 2 lightning and a colorless, its main attack does 160, plus if your opponent's active is poisoned, then it does an extra 80 damage, going up to 240, and with the poison on top of that, then you get to 250, which is enough to one-shot some tag team Pokemon like the Gengar Mimikyu that we saw in my set against Mitch, which is very strong. Don't need any additional cards like E-Power or anything like that. You can just one-shot some tag team Pokemon just like that, which is very impressive. But with E-Powers, 1 E-Power, you can take a knockout on an ADP. Really impressive. You can, on the second E-Power, you can take out an ADP with a big charm, or you can start to take out some of the other VMAXs that are already out. And if you manage to get 3 to 4, you can knock out just about anything that's out at the moment. And that's really the main draw of this card. But the Toxtricity VMAX isn't impressive enough on its own. Poison is a really tricky status condition to get onto your opponent's Pokemon. Recently, the only way to do that super easy was to use Koga's Trap, but now on this new set we have the new Garbodor line. We have a 3-3 line of Trubbish and Garbodor. Trubbish isn't really much to speak of, just a 60 HP basic with a 20 damage attack for 2 colorless, and I believe either adds poison or an extra 20 damage if you flip heads on it or something like that. But it won't come up very often. We're up for the Garbodor's ability. If you have a stadium in play once per turn, you may poison your opponent's active Pokemon. And this deck plays 3 stadiums, and well, if one of your stadiums isn't in play, usually one of your opponents is, even if it's something like a Chaotic Swirl, which usually is a bad thing. Garbodor makes it okay, so you don't really mind if you're losing the stadium war. You still got a stadium in play, and it activates your Toxtricity V and the VMAX, and you get that crazy damage output that you're looking for. But it also just adds 10 damage to all the other attacks in the deck, so there's always that the deck's got going for it as well. It has a lot of damage amplification, can hit really big numbers out of nowhere. Moving on, we have 1 copy of Boltund V. This card has really impressed me. Its first attack, Electrify, is reminiscent of the old fairy type Xerneas, which had Geomancy. This is the same, but for lightning. So for 1 lightning, you can attach up to 2 lightning energy from your deck to your bench Pokemon in any way that you like. which is really strong. And then for a lightning and a colorless, this attack does 10 plus 30 more for each lightning energy attached to all of your Pokemon, which ramps up really quickly. And with Garbodor, Poison, and Electric Powers, you can get some really big numbers from a 2-prize attacker, which is really, really strong. And they might not be expecting such so much damage when they're waiting to get hit by the Toxtricity V. So it really is a very versatile card, and I think I'd consider running more than one copy in the future because it's so strong. But moving on, we have a copy of Zeraora GX so that we can give ourselves free retreat. Only lightning energy in the deck, so everything has free retreat with lightning attached to it. It also has a good attack in Plasma Fist for 160, which can come up in a pinch if you don't have Garbodor down, but you want like a strong 2-prize attacker. You really don't want to go into the VMAX yet, maybe Bolton's prized, and you just need something to swing into a half-hit a Pokemon if you're not prepared yet. And it also has one of the only GX attacks that we consider using in the deck in full voltage GX, accelerating up to 5 basic energy from the discard pile to your Pokemon in any way that you like. But it probably doesn't get used that often because you'd rather use either Boltons or Toxtricity to attack. But if all else fails, you also have the one copy of Tapu Koko Prism to get your discarded lightning energies back onto the field, which is the traditional way lightning decks have been doing it in recent times since this card has come out. So we don't really need to rely on that GX stat too much, but Tapu Koko Prism, a mainstay of all lightning decks that require more than one attachment, and I can't see it going away anytime soon. It's just a very strong card. No real downside to it really. So not much to talk about there. Lastly, we play 2 copies of Dedenne GX for support, just to help us burn through the deck on our first turn, because we can't play supporters anymore on the first turn. Dedenne's got even more power, so we can burn through our deck with the Dennes and Acrobikes and the new Speed Lightning Energy, which we'll talk about later. But allows us to have really powerful first turns without supporters. And if you have to throw too many supporters away, fear no more, because we have Eldegoss V, which allows us to grab a supporter from our discard pile and put it back into our hand, much like Via Seeker of the past, but now it's just attached to a Pokemon V. And there's not much downside because it's got much more HP than the Dedenne, and we're already going to play a couple of those down, 1 to 2, maybe a game. And it's not much weaker than any of the other Vs in the format, so it's not that much of a downside to bench this Eldegoss, but most of the time you're going to be using it to get that game-winning boss's orders, or maybe a late-game Marnie or something like that if you play it in other decks. So I don't see it coming up too much in matches to having Eldegoss V lose you the match, but very strong card, one of the best cards coming out of this set for sure. Expect to see it in a lot of decks. But that wraps up our Pokemon line. We'll move on to the supporters. We are playing 4 copies of Professor's Research. It's the best draw supporter in the game at the moment. Unless they release something crazy, it's going to stay that way too, because it's always been the best supporter while it's out. And I mean, got to run 4 copies of it. It's just so good. You want to get through all your cards, get your Trubbish down, get your Toxtricity down, get your Lightnings attached, and just get the deck running. So we run 4 copies of that. It wouldn't be a lightning deck if we didn't run 3 copies of Volkner at least. It gets us a lightning energy and an item of our choice from the deck. Considering that we have boss's orders now, not as strong as it once was because it doesn't guarantee custom catches anymore, but still strong, always guarantees an Electro Power or just a key item that we need at a moment where we don't want to risk missing off Professor's Research or the Dedenne or something like that. So we can play the Volkner and just guarantee it. Really nice support for lightning type decks. And lastly, for our supporter cards, we play 2 copies of the new Boss's Orders. Boss's Orders is a great new card, like the Lysander of old, a guaranteed gust effect on any Pokemon that you wish. So, if you hated not being able to gust up that Zacian V on the bench except for custom catches, fear no more, because now we have Boss's Orders. He's here to take care of it. And yeah, I think Gust is pretty much taken care of for the foreseeable future now that this guy's in the format, especially with Eldegoss V. Even if you discard both of them early on off of a bad Dedenne or Professor's Research, you can get it back and win the game with a late game Boss's Orders. which is when I expect to see this card get played the most often. But that's our support count here. We've got a lot of ways to burn through the deck quickly alongside our supporters, so that's why we don't play too many in the deck. We play 4 copies of Acrobike, for example, that help us burn through the deck. This is just a great way to thin out the deck and get lightnings into the discard pile early for Tapu Koko Prism. And this just allows us to speed up our game plan. We can draw. It's one of the few ways we have to draw into our special speed lightning energy as well, and it just allows us to hit our key resources as early as we like. Moving on, we have 4 copies of Quick Ball. This is just the mainstay of the format as far as Pokemon Search is concerned. Unless you have a Pokemon type that has a better search, like Psychic types with Mysterious Treasure or Grass types with Nest Ball or Netball, then you're not going to go much further than Quick Ball for the best search in the game. It's just such a good card. Allows you to discard stuff that for your own benefit or thin out bad cards, and then you can search yourself for any basic in your deck. But not all of our cards are basic in this list. We have Garbodors and Toxtricity VMAXs, which are evolved Pokemon. So we play 4 copies of Pokemon Communication in order to help us find those. Let's see, we got 12, 15, 18 Pokemon on the deck, so it's not going to be too hard for us to be able to exchange a Pokemon for another Pokemon that we need to evolve into during your games. Especially when you play 4 copies of it, you'll be able to find it really easy between your supporters, Dedenne or Acrobike, and then you'll be able to get all those evolution pieces you need. Moving on, we have 4 copies of Electropower. It's a lightning deck, gotta have Electropower. It's like half the reason you play these cards, because it's just so strong. Electropower gives that extra boost to Toxtricity to give it the ability to knock out other VMAXs and other tag team Pokemon if it wasn't doing it already with Garbodor, and it just sort of pushes it over the limit to make it a truly outstanding offensive threat. Now we'll move on to tools and stadiums and stuff like that. We have 2 copies of Air Balloon alongside Zeraora. This is our retreat option in this deck. I might have to change that going forward because as you saw in the first game on the channel, had a little bit of trouble pivoting out of the active with Zeraora stuck in the active. Kind of slowed down my turn and gave Mitch too much time to do what he wanted in that set. So might need to consider playing a couple switches or just more Air Balloon, something like that. But something to consider for the future if you're looking to build this list yourself. Maybe consider putting in either an extra Air Balloon or a couple switches instead. Play a couple one-offs here. We play 1 Tool Scrapper. Really glad to see this card back in the format. We're starting to see some really problematic tools appear and become mainstays in every list. Skateboard for Jirachi has basically been has stuck to Jirachis as long as it's been on the board, and that just gives them too much versatility and ability to generate card advantage and get them the resources they need to win the game. Frying Pans to defend those Zacians from weakness and just the right amount of damage to knock them out. And annoying spell tags on Giratinas and Malamars and the like. No more. Tool Scrapper is back and it's ready to make a big impact. I think this card coming back in the format alone is enough to sort of send Mewtwo down a tier on its own, because with the combination of Tool Scrapper and Shadowbox Mimikyu, Stealthy Hood is not going to protect you from that combo anymore, and I just find it hard to believe that it'll do good. But I mean, this is a Toxtricity video, so enough about that. We'll move on. We have 1 copy of Reset Stamp. We don't play within confined space for any money, so we gotta chuck in a Reset Stamp. Gotta have some hand disruption. We can search it out with Volkner at any time if we don't ditch it early, which can sometimes be a problem. I know I did it many times in our previous video. So if you do like having a lot of hand disruption, you could consider cutting something to go up to 2 Reset Stamp. But for me, 1 is enough. This deck is particularly strong. It takes a long time for them to knock out that VMAX. And then you usually don't. You usually just put up another VMAX, so the other player 7 to 8 prize game. So you don't really need to worry about playing multiple Reset Stamps because the first one's usually not that effective. But we'll move on to our stadiums. we play 2 copies of Viridian Forest and 1 copy of Thunder Mountain, obviously, because this is a lightning deck, and Thunder Mountain is a really broke-off good card. It allows us to use GX attacks for free or for 1 attachment on the Dedenne if we're ever in a pinch. It allows us to attack 1 turn earlier on basically every one of our Pokemon if we so choose. Everyone knows that Thunder Mountain is a broke-off good card in these decks, and it's easy to see why. But up to my favourite part of this deck now, the energies. I really love this card. I think it's going to give lightning types the boost that it may not have needed, but it's got it anyway. It's 4 of the new speed lightning energy. This card gives this deck so much draw power. I couldn't believe how quickly I was getting through my deck between speed lightning energies, acro bikes, and Dedennes. You just tend to see all the cards in your deck, and that's just so strong. You're never gonna brick when you have so many outs to drawing cards in this deck. Between Pokecom, Quick Ball, Speed Lightning Energy, Acro Bikes, your 7 supporters, and your 2 Dedennes, and if you've managed to discard them at any point, Eldegoss V even as a support option, you have dozens of options to draw cards in this deck. So if you don't like inconsistency, then maybe this is the deck for you, because at this point, it doesn't feel like this deck can do much wrong as far as drawing cards and going through with its strategy. It's just that strategy is strong enough to contend with the rest of the format. But as we test more of it, we'll see how that goes. As for right now, this deck and Dragapult both look very strong, and I expect to see great things from both of them. But lastly, we play 6 regular lightning energy. I'd like to play more, but there's just not really enough space. The speed lightning energies are too good, but the main cool card of the regular lightning energy is, well, we can search them with Viridian, we can accelerate them with Boltund, which is a big one, but also we can recycle them again with either Tapu Koko Prism or Zeraora GX. So having more of them just means you have more access, so makes it a bit easier. But that's the list. I hope you guys liked it. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you like the content, and you want to see more. If you want a sneak preview into stuff you might see in the future from yours truly on the channel, it's just a sneak peek of what I've got cooking up for one of our next videos. So if you're looking forward to seeing this deck, then tune in for more. But it's been great walking through this, and I'll hand you back to Mitch.
Thanks, Blake, for sharing the list. As you said, if you did enjoy the content watching at home, then feel free to like, comment, subscribe. The subscribe button would be just about here. There'll be some videos over here, and down the bottom there'll be a playlist. Thank you very much, and hopefully we see you next time for more from the Sableyes. Bye.